All right, so we're going to be doing a mailbag for June, but first, I have a couple things I need to go over. Beginning with an update to the last Gmail update video that I did. I was contacted by a viewer who knows more about these things than I do to tell me that the problem is indeed my email address, which makes having to whitelist my email address make sense. He basically told me that Gumroad is using my email address to send out all of these emails and lessons, and that Gmail simply isn't recognizing Gumroad's authority to send emails on my behalf. It's not authenticating. And he told me how to solve it by getting a custom domain email and putting in the correct DNS settings for Gumroad, which I have gotten a new email, and I'm still waiting on Gumroad support to respond. Now, I still have the old email address. In fact, I have the new email address set up to forward to the old address. So you don't have to update your contact info. You can still reach me at the same address. Just know that if you start getting lessons or mailers from another address, this is why. Now, I gave this person a free program for helping me out, but I also wanted to thank him again here. So thank you very much for taking action and helping me when I didn't know what the hell it was I was doing. And the second thing we need to talk about real quick is, unfortunately, YouTube. They are at it again. They are making changes. This time they are getting rid of private messaging, which I have to admit I don't really use all that often. However, it has come in handy when someone needs to send details that they don't want to be made public, such as their email address or account information for customer service purposes, etc. So even though it's not used all that often, it is useful from time to time. So private messaging is going away very soon on YouTube. It may even be gone by the time this video reaches YouTube. I wish it wasn't, but I wish YouTube wasn't doing a lot of the things that they do. Just thought that I should mention it here before it goes away completely. Alright, so now that we covered both of those things, let's get into the mailbag. So we'll begin with a response from Joe March, a.k.a. Psycho Sorcerer, a.k.a. The Grand Infinity, replying on my Patreon about the last mailbag that we did, talking about him quitting YouTube. And he begins by acknowledging another patron on my Patreon. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate your heartfelt words, and thank you, Frater Xavier, for the offer. It is much appreciated. I want everyone to know that I'm okay. I'm not spiraling into the darkness of depression. I've been there in my 20s, and that's not what this is. I may have come across more harshly than I meant to in my final video. I didn't intend to imply that my videos didn't help guide or help others, only that I have come to realize that doing so was me being in the right place at the right time. It wasn't because of my efforts that others found aid. It was because they looked and I was there. Frater definitely put it more eloquently than I did. Did I help them? Yes. But can we help those who aren't looking for it? No. That's what I was getting at. There is a touch of nihilism in what I'm going through, but I assure you it is only a touch. The bulk of it is self-realizations, and I'm actually very excited about where I'm going. So there you go. He's alive and well. He's just going through some things that he needs to go through. The only thing I would really add is that you did help them by taking action and doing what you did, and by them seeking it. I mean, it's both. I mean, someone could seek all they want. If you wouldn't have done what you did, they never would have found it. They would never have been helped by those videos. And this is something that goes back to the very first videos that I did on this channel. You can go back and watch them, where I talked about that nagging voice that I had that got me to do YouTube in the first place. And it would say, if not you, then who? If not you, then who? Back then, there were very few stepping up. Now it seems to be the thing to do. There's magic channels cropping up every day, which you should be wary of, by the way. Make sure they're not just regurgitating the same old thing that's out there, that they're providing you valuable insights. Anytime there's success in any area, people will come along and try to copy that success. And so you'll need to use discernment on where you're getting your information. But if I wouldn't have acted and made videos, because I didn't want to back then, I really didn't. But if I wouldn't have taken action, those people that were seeking help may still be seeking help. The point is your actions do make a difference. I do understand where Joe March is coming from. There is a certain degree of humility that should always be maintained. I always tell people to thank themselves for stepping up, taking action, and making changes in their own life, not to pin it all on me. But at the same time, we shouldn't kid ourselves that those seeking help do need those who are willing to offer it. That is part of the great work. We're supposed to be finding ways to bring the light from the Sephirot of Kether down into Malkuth, the physical realm. And I always took that to mean it's meant to help illuminate the path for others. What good is it to bring the light down into Malkuth if it's not going to show anyone the way? In any case, we do wish him the best on his way and hope that someday he makes a return when he is able and ready, or at least lets us know how he's doing from time to time. Now, we also had someone send in a picture of an orange ball that just happened to show up after they had done the orange ball sigil. We haven't gotten many of those in a while, so that was pretty cool. It does remind me that I need to remember to do another group sigil in the near future, but for the time being, I do appreciate this person sharing their success with us. Frater Xavier, I want you to address a mistake that you made in where you said automobile accidents were the #1 cause of death in the U.S. It's actually not. It's heart disease. Okay. It's been a while. I don't recall saying it was #1, but I'll take your word for it. Heart disease sounds more like it would be the top cause. You are aware that statistics change over time, aren't you? Now, depending upon the source and the year of that source, the statistic may be correct for the time that it was written, because I do look these type of things up before I say them. But I will concede the point. Heart disease does sound about right for being the leading cause of death in the United States. So, now that we have addressed it as per your request, we now need to address how you completely missed the point that I was trying to make. Because whether or not automobile accidents are the #1 or the #3 cause of death, it doesn't really matter because it still kills a crap ton of people. The point was that something bad always comes with something that is perceived to be good, and vice versa. Automobiles transport us around very quickly, but they cause a lot of pollution, and a lot of people die using them. But the thing that you focus on is whether or not it's the leading cause or possibly the third leading cause, that I may have cited a statistical error for our time. You, my friend, have what is known as nerd brain, which is an overly analytical mind that focuses on the accuracies or inaccuracies of statements being made rather than what's actually being said. Now, don't get me wrong, that kind of mind does have its place. It's great if you're an analyst or a rocket scientist, an accountant who has to be accurate with the numbers. But in magic, it's terrible. Unfortunately, a lot of ceremonial magicians and their armchair counterparts are this way. Now, just for the record, this wasn't the only time this person sent me this message, asking me to correct the motor vehicle statistic. So if you think I'm being hard on them, they literally asked for this more than once across social media. But even so, I didn't pick your message to put you down. I picked it to show the type of thinking that holds magicians back. You really need to move more out of that logical left brain and more into the intuitive right brain. Look, those who are overly analytical tend to put way too much focus on structure, and in turn too focused on procedure. These are the people who are going to be too focused upon the exact pronunciations of God names, convinced that if they make one slip up or mistake, that their entire ritual is now ruined. They have to get everything in the exact order at the right time. They're so focused on the structure of the magical operation that they miss what's going on. in that magical operation. They become all form and no force. Magic is more feeling and fluid than it is a set of robotic instructions. Okay? So next time, focus on the point that's being made instead of overanalyzing it to the point that you missed the point. I love you, Frater. Have purchased some of your material, but everything before the word but doesn't count, as they say. But I think you went off the rails a bit with the whole overpopulation thing in your other video and seemed somewhat polarized on it yourself. Think you even knew it slightly since you disabled comments for it. And yet, here you are commenting. No, I disabled comments because I knew it was a highly polarizing topic and would polarize listeners such as yourself. Somehow you found a way to comment on it anyway, which is evidence that it has polarized you. Polarization just means that it was able to move you one way or the other. You listened to it and you found a way to comment on it, even though I had comments disabled. If that's not polarization, then I don't know what is. Personally, I would have liked to have left comments on that video to read everyone's reaction to the comic book intro that I spent so much time on, but I really don't require the validation, so I thought it was best to just leave them off because of the polarizing topic. He continues, overpopulation is a myth spread by the elite in charge. And you know this by all the time you've spent with the elite, do you? Mismanagement of resources is different than overpopulation. True, but we have both. Look, there are approximately 7.6 billion people on this planet. And I'm showing right now where I got that number from. I'm showing the statistic right here, just to head off any overly analytically minded people who you know are just going to go, actually, it's 7.593 billion people. There's 7.6 billion people. How many do you need? I mean, you personally, how many do you need? If you have 5 people living in a forest, the forest may perfectly support them. If one of the 5 people decided to burn down the forest, mismanage, that wouldn't be a population issue. Except you don't have 5 people. You have 7.6 billion. And they don't all live in forests. A lot of them were cut down to meet the ever-growing needs of those 7.6 billion. Haven't you ever heard of deforestation? Haven't you ever heard of Save the Rainforests? What do you think is causing that? They're not doing it for fun. They're not doing it because they're mismanaging resources. No, they're doing it to support the needs of the growing population. There are 7.6 billion people, and every single one of them has a high impact on the environment. Again, how many people are too many for you? How many more do you need, and at what point is it too late to do anything about it? Until we take over everything and there's nothing left, except humans. He says many experts believe that the planet will comfortably hold and eventually stabilize out at about 9 billion. Stabilize out. What do you think, that people are just going to stop multiplying at 9 billion? Or do you think that that is the number that the planet can comfortably sustain? I'm not quite sure what you mean by stabilize out, but I'm going to go with that 9 billion is your max number. Well, the world population is projected to reach 9.7 billion by 2050. The current population of 7.6 billion, obviously this is old because this says 7.3, but at 7.6 is expected to reach 8.5 billion by 2030. 9.7 billion in 2050, and 11.2 billion in 2100. Now, are we going to let it get to that point to where it's an even bigger problem? Unfortunately, humanity is very slow to take action until it's practically too late. So I don't really have that high a hope that people will consciously take action to solve it. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of his reply. You can read it if you want. It reads like it's from Alex Jones or something. But it's difficult to really debate someone on this without even knowing where they're from. I mean, if you live in a sparsely populated area, your perception and perspective of population is going to be different than someone that lives in a highly populated area. I happen to live in a highly populated area, and there are cities out there that are far larger than mine. Now, I went over all of that to help people, to get them to start thinking about it. I don't have any children. I don't have any skin in the game. Now, if people want to do something about it before it gets even worse, it's got to begin with reducing the birth rate. All right, we got time for one more. Frater Xavier, or OGFX, since your special effects and your intros you've been making are awesome. I am blank, and it has taken me years to somewhat be able to get my mind right so that my magic doesn't destroy everything it touches. I've also been a broke student with a lot of crazy personal loops and situations going on, and I did a lot of dark work. You made a video years ago that kind of changed my life, or whatever. I was interpreting the levers, one of the fundamental understandings of your lessons throughout everything you do, but you interpreted the levers in a way that inspired me. I figured if my mind is so messed up right now, maybe I can make a character for the subconscious and a character for the superconsciousness and enter a blank state and make cartoons. Soon, I was finding messages from the past and the future, comfort from myself, warnings from myself. I was able to access that technology in an imaginary world where the subconscious is allowed to be real and in charge, and would occasionally rediscover my work to be hidden communication between me, myself, and I, but also not really because they're just cartoons. I have been able to manifest, but being in this constant state of faith and anti-faith at the same time still kind of holds me back or helps me. Thank you for offering the technology that opened better communication up in my brain. P.S. Enclosed is me looking at my subconscious. Watts the rabbit who's pointing up to the superconsciousness. I call the superconsciousness OG. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story on how this channel has helped you, and also for sharing your artwork, which is fantastic. So thank you. And that is all the time we have for this installment. Share and like if you enjoyed it. Follow me on Twitter at Frater Xavier, especially now that the private messaging on YouTube is going away. And consider joining us over at Patreon, where even Joe March is hanging out. And I'll see you next time. Take care.